are like the top of the top funnel experts in the world.
What we realized is that so many people in that space weren't building any type of online presence for themselves.
So if you have a funnel hub right when you start out, you are maximizing your chances to get to that next stage. Hey, funnel hackers, online marketers, and anybody interested in the world of sales funnels. This is the first episode of the Funnel.Expert podcast, where we interview funnel masters who are absolutely winning with their funnels. During each episode, we'll hack their knowledge to learn the business and mindset shifts that allow them to succeed in their work and life. During this first episode, it's my honor to welcome agency owners and agency coaches, multi-time 2 Comma Club award winners doing millions per year with their funnels, 2-time funnel hacking live speakers, music geeks, and my mentors, Mike Schmidt and AJ Rivera. Welcome, guys. I'm
Hey,
so glad you're here.
Hey, how you
awesome.
doing?
Glad to be here, Gabor.
All right, Mike, AJ. I'm a huge fan of everything you do. I know you just celebrated the 20th anniversary of your agency, so I would like to congratulate you on this achievement.
Thank you.
So for the fans here, I first got into your world when I've heard about funnel hubs, which you've invented. And just to give a little context for those who are unfamiliar with the term, funnel hubs are strategically built websites that can position you as an authority, build trust with your prospects, and multiply your revenue by driving traffic to your sales funnels. Even Russell Brunson, who buried the concept of websites, became an evangelist, and now he's promoting this as the number one thing you should do before focusing on sales funnels. So I'm a dedicated student of Mike's and AJ's work, and I truly believe that this is the best thing out there to give the most robust possible foundation to any business. But before we jump too much ahead, please, could you share your story, how you got into the agency business, how you got to invent the funnel hub, and what's that you're doing right now, and how you got to know each other?
Awesome. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So thanks, first of all, for having us on the show. We're just really excited to be here and talking about all things agency and funnel hub, and being in the agency and funnel space. Since 2003 is we've seen a lot of things change, and it's just exciting that we're here getting to share the story some more with you. So I started a web design company in 2003, and if you think about what was going on back then, Google was not the top search engine. YouTube would be a few years off. Facebook was not a thing, and so the internet has just changed drastically. I mean, even you think about the phone that we carry around in our pockets right now. That wasn't even a thing yet either, and so it's safe to say that AJ and I have. We kind of are now the old dogs on the block when it comes to agency space, and it's something that's given us a lot of perspective on the way things are going. So started a web design company in 2003. AJ and I met in roughly, I think it was like 2008, right?
Yep.
And, we decided that we needed to kind of team up and put our minds together. Today, we have a successful agency that runs without us. It's something that's been a goal of ours for many years, but in 2020, we were able to step both feet out of that business because of the operating system that we built there. And today, that operating system is what we teach inside of Agency Coach to other agencies that are wanting to do the same thing. But along the way of building a successful business and a successful agency, we've used funnels, and we used lots of online marketing techniques to do that. And one of those strategies that came up along the way is the one that you mentioned, which was Funnel Hub.
Amazing.
Yeah, so Funnel Hub was actually created back, a few years ago when Mike and I were part of Russell Brunson's mastermind group. And I remember the first time that we joined that group, we were super eager to figure out who else was in there and what other funnel experts were in there and what we were going to learn. And we went to the very first event, And I remember we were the first ones there. We were there like an hour early, and there was little name cards of everybody all over the room. And I don't know what I was expecting to see, but like we didn't really know a lot of the names. And so we did what most people will probably do. We started Googling, right? And what we found was pretty incredible. Like for a lot of people that were there, we couldn't find them online. Or what we found was like a funnel that was like didn't really tell their story. It's just like, hey, join my mastermind group for $20,000, right? Or sometimes we'd find something that we knew shouldn't be there, or I thought that I knew what they did, but then when they went up and spoke, they talked about something totally different. So what we realized is that so many people in that space weren't building any type of online presence for themselves, right? They were going straight to funnels and straight to direct to ads and running traffic to specific pages. But as they started to establish a brand and as people started looking for them, there was just nothing there for them to find. And so that's what
Yeah.
really started to kick off the whole idea of Funnel Hub, in just recognizing that, hey, even though the funnel is where, the best spot for a sales to take place, like there's a customer journey that happens where they might search for you online, right? And when they search for you online, there needs to be something there that builds that trust and that credibility. And that's what ended up becoming what we created as the Funnel Hub.
Yeah,
I
which I'll just add,
absolutely.
AJ. It's like, it was pretty interesting about the room that we were entering. These, the people that were entering this room, we're paying, at least 25 grand to be there. So these were like the top of the top funnel experts in the world, right? Getting together
Mm-hmm.
in a small room in the middle of the winter in Boise, Idaho, and where the sun doesn't shine that much very often in the winter there. And we were there just trading ideas. And so we would have expected there to be some sort of like status of people being there. And so entering the room and seeing that all these people were so focused in on the funnel, because why? Well, the funnel is the number one place to turn a lead into a customer. And that's how they had all built these big, big businesses. But what was interesting is the footprint that was left by the fact that there was people searching for these companies and these businesses in this room that couldn't find them, right? And that's really what came to be what we call the shadow sales funnel, right? So when people are looking for your business online and a lot of your traffic is coming through funnels, what about all the people that don't convert? What about all the people who are searching for you to figure out who you are and what you do, but they're not finding anything about you online? And that was the experience that we had with these people in the room. And once we pointed this out to the folks there, that's where a lot of minds changed about websites. And Russell himself decided that maybe websites weren't so bad after all.
I love this story. Yeah. So could you tell about a few success stories? Like, what's the potential for a regular business owner? Because this is still relatively new, and I truly believe that someone who's implementing this formula first can have a huge advantage in their market. Uh, so could you share like what kind of transformations happened after someone switched from their regular website to a funnel hub? I know you got some nice success stories for this.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
the
Well,
first
I'd
one
say
that
like
comes to mind. Oh, go ahead.
go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
AJ.
All right, I would say the first one that comes to mind is probably Steve Larson. So Steve Larson's obviously big in the funnel world as well. But guess what? When you search for him online, what you found was a lawyer, right? It was a guy that didn't had nothing to do with online funnels. And so Steve, being the guy that he is and producing so much content, you would expect that maybe like some of that stuff would show up when you search for him. But guess what? He wasn't even on the first page of Google when you search for him. And so while he did have a lot of content going out to a lot of different channels and he was constantly publishing and doing all these great things, he had nothing that was really tying that together so that Google could understand that all these things were related, right? And they all belong to him. And so when we built the Funnel Hub for him, something pretty incredible happened. He went from not being on the first page for his own name to immediately like owning it, because he appeared in like the top 6 or 7 spots. The Funnel Hub was the number one spot, but then also everything else kind of lifted up. We saw his Instagram account go up, his YouTube account, like all these other sites where he was publishing content now showed up for his name. So he had kind of a big flip flop into where he went from not showing up at all to showing up and owning most of the first page. And he ended up seeing like something like a 500% increase in organic
Wow.
traffic to his website. And so think about that. Like that's 500% increase. It's not like he did anything to make more people search for him. These were already people that were looking for him. They just weren't able to find him, right? And so now that they could easily find it, boom, he's getting the traffic. And this is the power in really looking at your shadow sales funnel and understanding that whenever you have a brand and whenever you're driving traffic and whenever you're running anything to a funnel, you're gonna have people that are searching for your name, right? They might get to the end of a webinar and say all this stuff sounds great, and they're pulling out their credit card and they say, you know what, I just met this guy online on a Facebook ad an hour ago and now I'm about to buy something. Maybe I should go search for his name and just make sure he's legit. And if it's the experience where they're not finding anything, well, guess what? That credit card slowly goes back into their wallet. But if they're able to see, like, boom, everything come up, and they get to a site that looks legit, looks professional, and has case studies, and has all of the things that they might expect, then guess what? Their boxes are checked, and they're going to complete whatever that transaction is. So his was definitely the one that I thought I saw the quickest immediate turnaround, and he felt it right away because of the surge in traffic there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like to this day, I love to check other 2 club winners funnels, and I do this search regularly, and sometimes I still find as you said, high ticket offer or something that's further down the line for a
Mm-hmm.
regular user. So
Right.
there's still huge potential for anybody who's jumping on the Funnel Hub bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just give some pointers to the listeners, like what's a good start for them if they want to know more about funnel hubs or looking for ways to implement it for their businesses? Where should they go? What should they do?
Well, if I could share one other idea around this before we jump to that, because a lot of people hear the story about Steven and they'll say, well, that's great for him. He's got a lot of traffic, he's got a lot of visibility, you know, and I don't have that, right? And so do I need a funnel hub to catch the traffic if it's not there? And so the thing is that you need to understand that no matter what the size of your business, that you want to have a funnel hub that's there for the moment where the person who's doubtful and skeptical about your abilities or whether or not they want to join your programs or pay you money, they need to land on your funnel hub, because the funnel hub's number one job is to overcome doubt and skepticism and get them back into the funnel where that transaction can actually happen. But the thing is, like, none of us have a time machine, so we can't rewind the clock and go back to this when that search happened. So if somebody's searching for you today and they can't find anything about you and they don't find things that are helping them overcome that doubt and skepticism, it's not as if we get another chance to go back and do that. And AJ and I were first running traffic and doing funnels for real. We were doing a webinar every single week, and we were trying to sell $1,000 product at the end of that. And some weeks, the difference between us high-fiving and celebrating and being excited about the fact that we have a working business and us having no sales and nothing happening, sometimes that was just 1 or 2 sales. And so a funnel hub is as important as a small business as it is a big one, because even just 1 more sale or 2 more sales of your product would make a difference, right? And so that's really what's happening, is that there are people who are interacting with your marketing, they're going through your sales process, and then they're choosing not to buy because of some doubt and skepticism. And so no matter what your size of business, whether you're just starting out or this is something that you've been running millions of dollars a year through ads to your funnels, you have a shadow sales funnel. The thing is, your shadow sales traffic will grow in proportion to the size and the success of your funnel. And so the time to take that serious is now, because we can't rewind the clock to go recapture the people who choose not to buy from you right now. So just something to think about as you're thinking about whether or not it's something that's a strategy for just big people or folks that are just starting out.
I think about funnel hubs as impact multipliers, and the smaller you are, the more you need that lift to get to that next stage. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have a funnel hub right when you start out, you are maximizing your chances to get to that next stage, to succeed and be able to grow your business. So I think it's a winning strategy for small businesses, big businesses, and it's very structured. It's easy to follow, and I think that's where its strength lies. You can to have a funnel hub, and you can follow the formula. You can succeed with it like the big guys.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, it is really a force multiplier, and that it is more important for those smaller businesses, because that's where, the decision to keep going or give up is the strongest, right? Somebody who's already
Right.
running millions of dollars of traffic, they're probably sustaining on the traffic or on the business that's coming from the traffic that they're running, right? It's just that for that bigger business, that they're probably leaving a ton of opportunities on the table, that there's all this collateral damage of the people who enter their funnels through paid traffic, but then
Mhm.
never do anything. Like, for them, the
Right.
opportunity is, how can we recapture the folks that decided not to move forward and get them to take some next step or some next action, as opposed to just, considering it like a conversion. For us, on an average week, if we closed 10% of our webinar attendees, like, we're high-fiving, right? Like, that was a great and a typical week for us, right? But what about the 90% that didn't buy? Like, it's all
Mhm.
too common in the funnel industry for us just to assume that 90% is worthless. And that couldn't be
Right.
farther from the truth. Those people just need more data. They need more information to actually make a decision and move forward. And that's where the funnel hub comes in place to overcome that doubt, skepticism, or whatever reason they're delaying, and get them back into that sales process.
yeah, absolutely. It gives people a winning chance to really even match up with businesses who are further ahead, because
Mhm.
how they are able to present themselves through implementing the funnel hub. So yeah,
Exactly.
I'm loving the concept.
Mhm.
So where should business owners start if they are looking to implement the formula?
Yeah,
What's a
so
good
we
pointer
did a
for them?
podcast with Russell. If you go to funnelhublaunchpad.com, we were interviewed on the Marketing Secrets podcast, and that's a great place to kind of get some basic information about it. You can hear Russell interviewing us about Funnel Hub and how it works, and we go into a little more detail of some of the strategies of how it works. So you can check that out there over at funnelhublaunchpad.com.
Absolutely. We will share the link somewhere here so you guys can check it out. That was my first interaction point with you guys, actually. So the moment I heard about this episode of the podcast where you've been interviewed by Russell, I went to this site, the exact site you were just talking about. And I think it was like a day after the podcast show went live. And I purchased uh, the course, which is really a low cost way to learn more about funnel hubs and go deep, really deep, implement it for your business or other businesses. So it's a great start. And then I'm a fan since. So yeah, funnelhublaunchpad.com. We'll share the link, and make sure you visit the site and listen to the interview.
Awesome. Yeah, you were one of the first people through there,
Yeah,
weren't you?
Yep.
That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah.
So cool.
All right. Back into other aspects of your business. You said that you were able to transition from running your agency to doing something else, which is you are now coaching agencies. And yeah, I'm a mentee of yours, and I'm again loving that side of your business too. Uh, if you can introduce the agency coach program a bit more, and tell about how you're helping agencies, we would love to hear more about that too.
Right on. AJ, you want to start?
Absolutely. So, Mike and I have owned our agency for 20 years now, and it took us a long time and a big journey to figure out how to get this thing to operate without us, right? There's so many agency owners that we run into that don't really own an agency. They just own a job, right? Like all of the stuff is relying on them to get it done. They're typically doing a lot of the work themselves, and they don't really have any processes in place to help them unbury themselves from this quicksand that they've created around themselves. Agency owners tend to be some of the most resourceful people, I think, in the world, because, when we were learning how to build websites and how to do digital marketing, we had to learn on our own, right? There wasn't really schooling or courses or any of those types of things to help us out. And so because of that, we become really resourceful. And what that's done is it's created a lot of businesses where the owner feels like they have to do everything on their own, right? Because they know how to do it and they know that they could figure it out. When in reality, most other businesses don't work that way, right? Most other businesses don't work where, the owner themselves are the ones that's also operating the business and doing all of the work. If you think about like a subcontractor for a home, they're not doing all of the work. They're not doing the drywall and the cabinets and the electrical and the plumbing and all those different things. If you had somebody that was trying to do all of that, you probably wouldn't want to buy that home from them, right? And so what we're trying to do at Agency Coach is help agency owners understand that they can build an agency that can run without them, so they can own their agency and they can own their life. And so there's a lot of ways that we go about helping them to do that. We help them with creating what we call agency productized recipes, which are just a very repeatable way for them to provide the services that they provide to their clients. We help them to focus on building recurring revenue, right? We help them with their sales process so that they can close more people for higher amounts, and also show other people on their team how to do the same. And so this combination of all of these different things is really what Mike and I came up with after a really long journey, right? Like none of this stuff existed for Mike and I. We didn't have these types of shortcuts. We really had to just like try and figure things out on our own. And so once we got the agency to a point where we could step both feet out of it and have it not only run, but continue to grow, we knew that we wanted to help other people achieve that same thing, right? We knew that we wanted to give them the shortcut that we didn't have when we were growing our agency. So it doesn't have to take them as long as it took us to figure all of this stuff out. And so it's been super, super awesome to be on this journey because we know that we're having a bigger impact, right? Like our agency helps locally focused businesses in Tucson, Arizona, which is where we're at. And that's great. And, I love Tucson. I was born and raised here, and I love the impact we've been able to have. But now we have students all over the world, right? And these students all have agencies in their own communities that are helping businesses. And so when we could take the stuff that we've learned and give people those shortcuts, we're seeing them have massive success and more impact in their areas and working with more customers. And it just feels amazing to know that we're able to have that type of impact on really the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think AJ nailed it for sure. And I think where we see a lot of agencies come into our world is they're like, they may not realize, or they may not think like we thought, which is like, we want to have a business that can run without us. Because a lot of them don't believe that it's possible or understand why they want to do it. Many people get into business because they love the thing that their business does. It's like, if you've ever read the book E-Myth by Michael Gerber, he talks about the difference between the work of your business, right? Like what your business does, in this case, like building websites or running Facebook ads and doing digital marketing, and the business of running that kind of business, because they're really two separate things. And I'd say probably one of the main objections I hear from folks that love to do the digital marketing side of things. Say, well, I got in this because I love to do it. But I didn't get into it because like I wanted to be an awesome salesperson. And what's funny is like, that's totally both AJ and my story. Like neither of us were born salespeople. We didn't get into this business because we loved selling. We got into it because we wanted to create websites, and we wanted to help businesses with their marketing. And so it's kind of like an interesting place to be, where you know how you know the doing of your work so well, but you're struggling because you don't know the other business aspects. And so that's very much like where AJ and I come in to fill the gap. That people who are passionate about websites or digital marketing or funnels, and we help them build the right kind of support structure around themselves, so that way they can have a business that is actually operating and feels good, and it's creating time and financial freedom. I mean, nothing's worse than having a business that you feel trapped by, like trapped because you're not making enough money, or trapped because you're so busy. And then you're so busy that you can't invest the time to do all the other things that you need to make the business work. And so we see far too many agencies that are burnt out, stressed out. They're not making enough money, and so they feel like their back's up against the wall, that they've either got to like go back and get a job or do something else, or they've got to make it work. And for the agencies who like want to make it work, like that's where we come in. That's where we help them deploy the systems, the operating system that's necessary in order for each of these components to play together. So that way the agency owner's making money, they're getting their time back, but they still get to do the things they love to do in the business, because there's a difference between having to do the work and getting to do the work. And we want our agencies to be able to do the kind of work that they're passionate about while still making good money.
I'm loving that. You've actually teach me so many key concepts like snowflake projects, productized services, leveraged service providers, and they all connect. Like if you don't have a productized service, then you have snowflake projects and you can't use leveraged service providers to ease your workload. So you hit it right in the middle, and I think that's why so many agencies are loving your program, and I'm one of them. But just to give a little perspective of where you need to be to find use of your program, could you just share like how big an agency should be to have success with the program? Because I know we are not talking about 6, 10, 12, 15 people, but you're having single agency owners who are um, outsourcing work, having huge success and hitting how big revenue. Like I know a particular success story that is jaw dropping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on where the agency's at and what they're struggling with. So if they're struggling with leads, right, if they're struggling with conversion rates, right, if they're struggling with like charging enough, if they're struggling with any aspect of team or service delivery, or if they're struggling with margins and keeping enough money at the end of the day, like that's where we step in to help. And so, I say on one end of the spectrum, we've got a student, Steve, that had a lot of the things going right. Amazing business, a team of, I think, somewhere between 15 and 20 folks.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that he had not given up yet was sales. So he had somebody managing projects. He had people, doing a lot of the hands-on work. But the thing that kept him in the business and kept him from being able to pursue other things was the fact that every sale that happened had to go through him, right? Because the risk for him, he had people he could hand sales over to, but he knew that if he handed it over to someone else, it while they would do a fine job, they probably weren't going to sell it for the same value as that he was capable of doing that. And so the project we worked on with him was figuring out how to extract him out of the sales process by giving him a process that he could train his team up on. And so in a rather short amount of time, in about, what was it, AJ, 3 to 6
months.
months, he was able
Mm-hmm.
to take his business and be able to step outside of it and not have to be the person that was always selling. Now, did he sell from time to time? Sure, he could step in and do that whenever he wanted, but now he had a system to hand that over. So certainly, that's not everybody's issue. Some people are just like, gosh, like I just need to sell more, let alone handing it off to someone else. And so on the other side of the spectrum, there are folks that have started an agency using the training that we have to be able to build a business that has is foundationally in the right place, where they're attracting leads, they're nurturing them, they're warm and they're nurturing them, they're getting folks asking them for help with digital marketing and websites, they're selling them on high ticket recurring revenue, they're building their recurring revenues up, and they're creating a business where they're not the ones having to do all the work, right? And we're showing them how they can do that without having to hire a big staff and bring that through that whole process. And a great case study of that is a friend of ours, Jason, who had his first $1 million year with just himself and one W-2 full-time employee, which is pretty awesome, right? He went from, in a matter of about 3 years from zero starting out to having his first $1 million year, which is just phenomenal.
That's amazing. Like, I think any of us would be happily accepting those kinds of revenues, and
Mm,
just listening to this story again makes me think that, again, with the agency coach program, we are in a similar situation with the funnel hub concept. The earlier you adopt the right practices, do things the right way, the more
Mhm.
success you will have. And you said, like, these are foundational core principles that you have to apply. And if you're a seasoned agency owner, you have to actually de-learn what you already know, and
right.
adapt to this mindset. So
Yeah.
again, I think this is awesome for even a
Yeah.
freelancer who wants to scale.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really successful agencies out there. Ones that are just like 1 to 2 people, or like they're a handful of small teams. But there's some aspect of the business that's broken, right? And that's okay. Like, those agencies should congratulate themselves for having had the success they've had. But if there's like a piece of the business that doesn't feel right, that you feel stuck inside the own business that you've created, and you don't see like a way to have it grow without you being there, um,
Right.
then there's area for improvement, right? And so, like, it's just a matter of identifying which piece of that is causing you to be stuck. I find it's because the agency owner starts to believe that there are certain things within the business that only they can do.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's sales, and sometimes that's development, and sometimes that's marketing, and sometimes that's some other piece, right? But we just have to identify which one that is, and then create systems to extract the agency owner from that. Because, like AJ mentioned it before, like, we believe that agency owners are some of the most resourceful people on the planet. We figure stuff out. Like, I had a client one
Mhm.
time tell me, she was sitting next to me, and she said to me after I was helping her update a website, she's like, Mike, you are one of the like most like awesome people, because you never say no. Like, you always figure out a way to make whatever request I have happen, right? And she was right.
Right.
Like, whatever she wanted to do, I was like, even if I should have told her no, I was like, yeah, well, we can make it work like this. And I was just, excited, and I loved the challenge. But I came to realize in time that, a strength overused becomes a weakness. And I was saying, yes to everything, and I was bearing myself by the work. So that's just an example of how I needed to change the way that I was doing things, so that way I wasn't the bottleneck in everything. Because honestly, I couldn't find anybody else that could do the work the way I could. And if I did, they were probably one of my competitors out there. So it's like, it wasn't realistic for me to go necessarily hire a competitor. Certainly you could do that. Some people do that. But what's
Mhm.
more realistic is figuring out why you're being the bottleneck, create a system around that, so you can successfully hand that off to somebody else on your team, or whether you outsource it. I mean, there's lots of options.
For folks who are wanting to have the right foundations, I know you've got a great starting point, a great program which is in a challenge format that could show them how what you do actually works.
Mhm.
Could you share some details about that particular program?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've got lots of resources for agencies, and like, even if someone wants to learn some of our things, and doesn't want to join one of our coaching programs, we've got tons of free training content in our Facebook group, on our YouTube channel. If you go to groupforagencies.com, you can join our Facebook group, and there's a couple free gifts and trainings in there that'll kind of help you see some of what's involved in building an operating system for your agency. But the program that you're referring to is a 5 day workshop, a challenge that we go through, called our Agency War Plan 5 Day Challenge, and it's really about helping to build a plan for the next 90 days of what you need to do each day in order to create a bigger output for your agency. So the promise of that is how you can actually double your agency's revenues in 90 days, and we show you systematically how to do that. A lot of agencies don't believe that's possible for themselves. But when you see the math and you understand kind of how we take you through that mindset shift, it's pretty transformative. So we do that challenge about once a quarter. And so that's something, if folks are interested in that, being in our Facebook group would be a great starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody who wants to up their agency game, I recommend you checking out the Facebook group, and I will share the links to the group. And stay tuned for the next agency challenge. And going back to what interests most people is, funnels are all about modeling best practices if you want to have a shortcut. So I'm particularly interested in breakthrough funnels, the one funnel that actually helped folks uh, have a huge leap in their business. So could you share what was the shift in your business? What was the particular funnel that had your business really grow?
Yeah, I think we kind of shared probably two different perspectives on this. Like, one is for our agency, right? And like what was the most impactful one there, and then one's for our coaching business or our funnel driven business. AJ, you want to either one of those feel more appealing to you
Yeah,
to take on first?
yeah, absolutely. I think for our coaching business, probably the first one that we did that we started with, which was a program called Review Pro Launchpad, where we were teaching agencies how to offer review and reputation management. This is at a time where all the agencies were talking about building your website or helping you with SEO or doing all these different things. And we wanted to have a different angle that people could use to get their foot in the door and build trust with people. And so when we got into funnel building, I remember the very first thing that we tried to build was like this very huge program and course that was teaching every single aspect of what we did at Anchorwave. And as we started building that, we were just like, man, this is just like too much. It was too much for us to create. It was like we didn't feel super inspired to do it. Wasn't super exciting at that time. And I remember, Mike saying, what's the one thing that's working the best in our agency? And let's just teach that. And at that time, we sat down and thought about it, and it was review and reputation management. It's the one thing that our customers were always really excited about. We create a very tangible result that's quantifiable, and it would build trust. For a lot of people, they were offering that, but they were kind of doing it on the back end of everything else, right? Like they'd be helping them with their website or Facebook and say, you know what, we should also help you with your reviews. And we did that for a long time until we started realizing that's the thing that all of our customers were talking about. And so we decided that we wanted to start leading with that. We wanted to start talking about that when we're going to BNIs or business groups or chambers of commerce or mixers or any of those things, because nobody else was really talking about it. And we had a ton of success with that because it did a couple of things. One, it got that result, right? They knew that when they gave Anchorwave money, they got a result. But two, it paved the way for us to then make more recommendations on higher ticket recurring revenue services that we could, offer to them. And so that whole idea is what we put into a course called Review Pro Launchpad. And this is when we were, in Russell's mastermind, and his advice to us was like, don't build anything else, right? This was considered our core offer until you've done this, a webinar every single week for an entire year, right? And that's, there's a lot of work that goes into that, doing that over and over and over again. So I got to give kudos to Mike because he was the one that was presenting that webinar. I was behind the scenes in chat, but him delivering that live every single week for a year is what it took for us to get our first 2 Comma Club award. And that's what initially built our community. That's what got us into the coaching space. We were still very actively involved at Anchorwave. We kind of had 1 foot over there and 1 foot over here, but that gave us the confidence that we needed to know that eventually we wanted to shift and move both feet into agency coach, right? And it was at that moment that we started realizing that there's still some work that needs to happen in order for us to do that, right? Like we couldn't just immediately jump over. We needed to figure out how to take off whatever hats were still remaining in order for us to do that. And so that funnel is a funnel that still runs today with that same exact webinar. We still get sales on it all the time. We should probably refresh it at some point, but it just works really well. And all of our students that have gone through that program, they get really great results. They're able to provide something that's an easy to say yes to product that just gets results every single time, right? And so when they're able to do that, they're able to build trust that they need to ask for the higher ticket stuff that they were asking for at the beginning. It's almost like going into a bar and just asking every girl, like, hey, do you want to make out with me? Do you want to make out with me? Like, let's get to know each other a little bit more first, right? That's what this program and offer allows agencies to do, and it's been a super super key element to our success as an agency. And then now it was the first thing that built our community that we now can offer other things to at Agency Coach as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so I'd say webinars for us on the funnel driven side of the business is really the key thing. And it's kind of funny because like they kind of go in and out of like popularity. Like today, or more recently, like challenge funnels is a really popular thing, and we've done challenges. But like the thing about, I think, especially for a newer funnel driven business, there's nothing quite like a webinar to really help you hone your ability to communicate what it is you do, and also kind of put you on the spot to perform. And it made me so much better about being on camera and speaking in front of a group, even though it was virtual every week. Right. So I see a lot of funnel driven businesses struggle, where I think it's like, if they would have got the same advice that Russell Brunson gave us early on, which is like, do a webinar. He said to us, he's like, guys, do a webinar every week for a year, and I promise at the end of the year you've made $1 million. And so Russell was not right. It took 14 months, but honestly, like, we're not mad at him for that. And so the thing is that doing a webinar it takes a lot of work. Like, to do that live every week. The funny thing is, the very first webinar we did, we had, I don't even remember how many, but probably 10 or so registrants, and definitely less than that showed up, just like 2 or 3 or 4 maybe. And we had no sales at the end of it. AJ, myself, and another guy on our team go to lunch afterwards to kind of debrief, and we're sitting there at lunch, and then the phone buzzes, and it's our first sale, $997, $1,000. And like, we went crazy. Like, the whole restaurant thought we'd lost our minds or something. Like, they thought we'd won the lottery or something. That's how we were acting, because that's how it felt. Right. And so we knew we had something. And I said to AJ afterwards, because he's like, hey, man, that was awesome. You did a really good job, which I was like, oh, that's great. And so I'm like, cool. Like, we can automate it now, right? Like, we can just set it on autopilot, and I don't have to do that again. And he's like, well, not so fast. It was good, but it needed some work, right? And it wasn't that good, right? So I was like, oh, okay. So I ended up committing to doing that every week. And I did that for about 1.5 years, live every week. And every week there was just a small tweak or a small improvement or a small thing that we changed, a learning, an insight, a question I got asked in chat. And I feel like there's no better way than a webinar than to get that kind of information and iterate that quickly. Now, did you have to do it for 1.5 years like I did? Probably not. But the point is that, like, getting out there and doing that is a really quick way. And it was the difference maker for us. Like, that's what put us into business in the coaching side of the world, and the information and expert side of our businesses. And then, AJ touched on what it was for our agency. The thing that we were teaching in this product, this webinar I was doing every week, was reviews. And the reason we were teaching that, because it was review and reputation management that made such a huge impact in our agency, because it became our foot in the door for any business we wanted to talk to. How many times have you been, talked to a business and, like, you wanted help with their website or do Facebook ads for them or something else, and they're like, they got a guy already. There's already working with someone. Like, why would they work with you? Well, you know what they're not getting talked to about is reviews. So, like, I would be able to walk up to just about any business owner and say, instead of saying, hey, can I help you with the website? I'd say something like, hey, how are you attracting more 5-star reviews? And they would tell me whether they were or weren't. And I'd say, well, if I could show you a way to get more 5-star reviews from your actual clients, would you be interested in hearing more about that? and now I had their attention, right? And that was a conversation starter, and still is an amazing conversation starter that can get get the attention of businesses in a way that you can get them into a quick win, profitable service. So, and that's what we teach inside that training. But the reason we teach that is because that was the funnel, that was the sales process that helped our agency. So, if you're an agency, reviews. Like, I can't sing that loud enough. All these years later, it's still a huge opportunity and a greatly underserved service that businesses need someone to help them with, right? And when it comes to an expert business, like, my advice to most people starting out is, like, if you can get the reps in of doing webinars again and again, there's nothing quite like it.
I love both of the examples. Finding something that's an easy win for your clients, make it productized so they can quickly adopt it, and then hone in on your presentation skills. Especially these days, everything transitions into a video format, so it's essential to be good on camera. So yeah,
Exactly.
great examples. Uh, as we are nearing to the end of our time, I just want to grab a few quick wins from you guys, mainly about what you think your biggest accomplishment was in your business, just to grab that, uh, and why that made you proud. If you can share one example from
Yeah,
each
of
of you,
Yeah,
that
course.
would be amazing.
yeah, 100%. I think the thing that I'm most proud of is actually building a business that can run without me, right? Like, Mike talks about it a lot. When he worked with the business coach early on, he told them that the definition of a business was a profitable commercial business that runs without you, right? And for a long time, we had a profitable business. But guess what? If Mike and I were to take off for a month or two, it wouldn't be so profitable anymore. And so, us getting to the point where we felt confident enough to take both feet out and really allow it to run. I mean, we meet with our CEO Lily, maybe 3-4 times a year just to get a pulse on the business. But she's doing an amazing job over there, and it's continuing to grow, and she's continuing to refine things. And every single person that was an employee of ours has stepped up, as we've stepped up and out. And it's just been amazing to watch that, and makes me really proud of what we were able to build over there, because now we can really call ourselves business owners, right? That's what that definition means.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I'll just add to that, or kind of a similar take, is what's enabled that in a lot of ways, in addition to the systems we've built, is our ability to create high ticket recurring revenue with the clients that we serve, right? So, time and financial freedom, or rather financial freedom, really isn't that mysterious. All that means is that you have more money coming in than is leaving your account every month, right? So that your cash flow of your business exceeds the expenses associated with it. And so, no matter where you're at today, like, how much does it cost you to run your business and to live your life? And if you want financial freedom, well, then you need to create more recurring revenue, not just revenue, but recurring revenue, than the amount of money it costs you to live and to run your business. And that's financial freedom. And so it's not mysterious. It is hard, however, unless you have a system to actually build that. And I think that's where we've fallen into the trap before. We used to have a business that was successful by most measures of the definition, but it was something that we were in this constant feast or famine cycle, where some months would be amazing, right? Followed by months that were just not great. And so having a business that is constantly great and then not is not a recipe for a stress-free life. And so us being able to build that high ticket recurring revenue in a way that was systematic, and that we could build a relationship with a client and expand and expand and expand that monthly investment they were making with us, is something that very quickly added up to being something that was really life changing for us. Like, have you ever looked at your bank statement and added up? You looked at the bottom and you're like, how did I spend that much money this month? And you look across all of the lines and you see like there's like a few bucks here and $50 there. Like any one of those, it doesn't feel like it adds up, but like somehow it does. Like, I don't know if you've ever had that experience, Gabor, but like I know I have. But what's crazy about recurring revenue is it works the opposite way too. Like, it doesn't take that many clients paying you high ticket recurring revenue to make a real significant impact in your life. And so what I want to say to the folks listening to this is that if you want financial freedom, which means, again, having more recurring revenue than your expenses every month, well, then you might not be that far away from having that as a reality, because recurring revenue stacks so quick. And that's one of the lessons that we've had to remind ourselves again and again. Have to admit that sometimes we even forget that lesson. But that's something that allows us to really create the kind of business and the lifestyle that we want from the businesses that we own.
Great. Real gold nuggets here. And basically, you just answered my next would-be question, which is, what advice would you give to young entrepreneur who's starting out? And it sounds like recurring revenue and building a business that you can step away from. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's a big
definitely.
part of it. Probably the only other thing that I'd add to that is finding somebody that's already where you're going, right? They might be a few steps ahead of you, but like if you're just starting a business and you can see somebody that's already has the success that you want, like try to model yourself after that person, right? Like I think far too much time gets spent with business owners trying to figure everything out on their own, right? Like they think like if they don't figure it out and they don't like come up with the way to do certain things, that it doesn't count, right? No, it's like I think Tony Robbins said, the best way to build a business is to just model somebody that's already successful. They've already figured it out. And there's a lot of resources out there, videos out there, people like us that are trying to just give you everything that we've learned over 20 years. So it doesn't have to take you that long, right? Because it really doesn't. It took us that long because sometimes we're slow learners and we didn't have a lot of people to model after. But now we have those shortcuts for you guys. And so if it's not us, just make sure that you have some type of mentor or somebody that's able to tell you what you need to do, because they've been in your footsteps before and now they've got past that point.
Right. Yeah. Life's an open book test, right? Like when you're in school and the teacher's like, all right, close books, let's take a test. Everyone's like, this sucks, right? But when they're like, hey, and by the way, it's an open book, everyone like celebrated, right? And excited about that. Well, why is that? Well, the reality isn't the reason why we love open book tests is because that's actually the way life works. Like everything else you look at is open book. Like we get to look at the things that other people are doing. Like we're a tribal society that learns from one another and by watching what other people do. And so when we're in an environment where we're not allowed to do that, it goes against our DNA. And so like in business, it's quite the same lesson, that when you find someone that's doing what you want to do, has what you want, and is able to show you what to do, like it should feel good. I mean, because there's a lot of years where AJ and I felt like we had to be the lone wolves, like because of that mentality of like we can figure everything out, that we just kind of tried to do that. And so don't fight your DNA. Ask for help. Look for the people who are doing what you want to do, whatever it is, and find a way to study under them or next to them or watch what they're doing or subscribe to their YouTube channels or like just dissect what it is they're doing, because that is going to help you get there so much faster. You don't have to do it on your own because life is an open book test.
I love that. And many students probably have a relief now that they don't have to do the closed book test
Totally,
all the
right?
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we spend so many years in school, right, that teach learning the other way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't get me wrong, like school plays an important role for a lot of people, but there are also some things we learn in school which don't actually align with our entrepreneurial journey. And we have to recognize when our training and the way we were brought up is out of alignment with that. And sometimes it's just a matter of saying like, I'm rejecting. I know this is the way I used to do it and the way I've been taught to do it, but that's not actually how life works and how I want to apply it right now. And it's a huge skill set and advantage just to be aware of that kind of thing.
I love these ideas. All right. So with that, we are closing to a wrap, and I just wanted to ask the guys where people can learn more about what they do, if there's anything that excites them, people should stay tuned for, and yeah, where can they learn more from your work?
Yeah, 100%. We've got a number of things going on. But so if you're an agency, like we mentioned before, heading over to groupforagencies.com be a great place to connect with you. If you tend to be more on the funnel driven business side of things, funnelhublaunchpad.com is a great spot to start. We do have some really cool stuff coming in both of those areas, so getting connected would be awesome. And I also just extend a personal invitation to the folks listening that if you would like to reach out to me on Instagram, send me a DM. Mr. Mike Schmidt is my handle, so happy to chat and to continue the conversation there.
Yes, and we will share all those links, so you don't have to rewatch the episode 100 times to figure those links out. This was fun. It was amazing to have you here. So many garden nuggets to digest. Luckily, we can always rewatch this episode. And I'm excited to learn more from you and can't wait to see what else you share with us in the future. And thanks for tuning in. This was the first episode of Funnel.Expert podcast with many more to come. Make sure to subscribe. Thanks, Mike and AJ, and keep hacking and modeling, everyone, so you can shorten your path to success.
Awesome. Thanks for having us, Gabor.
Thank you, Gabor.